It's an unusual sound in a hospital, but one that's music to the ears of 39-year-old Kelly Weeks.
If you're sitting there as a patient getting chemotherapy, if you can hear someone ringing that bell, it gives you hope.
Which is exactly what Kelly needed. She was diagnosed with stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma last February after feeling a lump in her breast.
That was, paralyzing fear, and I didn't really know how to handle or proceed.
She'd undergo a lumpectomy and several rounds of chemo and radiation.
The 4 rounds were the wrecking ball. Those are what made me lose my hair, what took me down to nothing.
And to keep her mind off of what was happening to her body,
it was very painful and sickening.
Kelly would read other survivor stories to give her hope. And that's where she learned about the celebration bell.
It's in a lot of cancer centers, a bell. And the quote is, ring the bell and run like hell.
I can remember when Kelly brought that up that day. And I hadn't heard of that before, but I mean, we were talking about it, here on the unit. We thought, what a cool idea.
I just knew I was going to ring a bell. I knew I was going to be one of them. I wanted to ring a bell. I want a bell in my picture. I'm going to buy a bell. We have to get a bell. And then I got the bell, and it was beautiful. This was phenomenal.
Now, the idea of a celebration bell in a cancer center is nothing new, but Kelly says what they did with it is beyond anything she ever imagined.
They had it mounted. They had it mounted and on a plaque, and bigger, better than I ever imagined. And it has my name on it. I'm like, what? I didn't do anything. All I did was open my mouth.
And while this bell brings her an immense amount of joy, she says she wouldn't mind never hearing it again.
For cancer to just be eliminated, that would be even better. To never hear that bell, that would be totally awesome. But as long as there's cancer, I hope that bell rings 20 times a day.
It really is a celebration. Lots of hugs, tears, really marks that milestone in a very special way.
For every time you hear a no, another life is filled with hope.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Perfect, just like that.
And perhaps no one knows that better than Terry Shaver.
Awesome. It means a lot to be able to use that as a skill that God's given me to be able to bless somebody so much.
The idea for the Oldham Project came to Terry after her brother lost 2 of his sisters-in-law to breast cancer.
I was sitting at the funeral home watching the slideshow play that people do now, and I thought, I can use the skills that I have to make people feel better during that time.
So in 2008,
this was the first one we ever photographed.
She created a nonprofit bearing their last name to provide portrait sessions free of charge to anyone, man, woman, or child battling a life-threatening illness.
It's primarily cancer, but it's not only cancer.
We've done a woman who had a lung transplant, somebody with sickle cell.
We don't want to limit trying to make people feel better. Whether it's cancer, whether it's some other disease, we don't have a litmus test for that.
There's no interview process or application.
You want your picture taken, we're going to take your picture.
Just a conversation with Terry to make sure everyone gets a session as unique and original as they are.
Every session is very personalized. I talk to them a long time about things that mean something to them, things that people will remember them by, things that are meaningful to them.
They go over the top to make sure you're pampered and loved on and comfortable.
The goal of the Oldham Project is simple. It's not just about getting a pretty picture, but about giving these patients and their families one day away from doctors, away from pain, away from cancer.
It makes people feel good about themselves in one of the most miserable times in their life. It gives them a day away from treatment, a day away from thinking about how hard it may be, to just relax and appreciate the joy of being you.
Board President John Madden saw it firsthand when his wife was photographed in the midst of her battle with ovarian cancer.
That session changed the whole cancer period for us. We went from being victims to recovery. I can point to that time. Nothing was going right, and then after that session, she never wore a wig, never wore a scarf, a hat. She was bold, she was beautiful.
And that's what Terry strives for. With every pose,
spin yourself around,
every photo,
good, I want you to turn your face back this way,
every session.
Perfect. We have costumes here, we do dress up, we get balloons, we just make it a really fun experience. And to see little kids with ports in and no hair, just to see them let loose and pretend and dance and twirl, it lights me up.
In Bath Township, Sarah Swistak, Fox 47 News.
A mom knows when there's something wrong with their child. You can feel it, you can sense it, you can feel it.
And when LaShawn Thompson's son Nathan was 2 months old, she could visibly see it, a small but unusual tilt in his head.
He was so miserable. He would just cry nonstop.
As the months went on, it only got worse. Eventually, Nathan was diagnosed with torticollis, Latin for twisted neck.
It was quite stressful.
And so was the treatment plan. Physical therapy and occupational therapy both twice a week, and LaShawn didn't have a car.
The nearest bus stop, I want to say, is roughly a quarter mile. It took 2 buses, sometimes 3, to get to all his appointments. So if I did not calculate it down to the last second, I would have missed the bus.
Forced to either miss Nathan's appointments or walk several miles to the hospital with 2 children in tow.
I was in tears. I was frustrated. I was under a lot of stress. I didn't know what to do.
This is a huge problem.
Which is exactly why Pam McClouchich founded the Davies Project, a nonprofit providing free rides to medical appointments for children in need.
70% of the kids in our community that use the local clinics are on Medicaid. They miss 60% of their appointments, outpatient appointments, routinely.
It's not just a free ride, it's a road to better health. The Davies Project knows that fewer missed appointments means healthier kids. And they want to make sure no child is sick just because they can't make it to the doctor.
The magic that's happening that I wasn't aware of beforehand is the connections the families and the drivers are making with one another.
It's more than just those rides that we're providing. It's way more than just the transportation.
You build rapport, you build friendships.
So we're building bridges.
We're able to, not much money, be able to help a lot of children and a lot of families that need it.
Families like the Thompsons, who are overwhelmed with gratitude not only for the Davies Project, but for their happy and now healthy baby boy.
And they can make you think that all is lost when you're faced with situations like this, and Davies Project gives you hope.
When 61-year-old Deborah Meehan Lint was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer last January, she wasn't sure she wanted to pursue treatment.
I've lost 2 husbands to cancer within the last 5 years, and I saw what had happened with them and the chemotherapy, and I just really didn't feel I wanted to go through that.
But that all changed when she learned Sparrow Hospital was getting a DigniCap machine.
I said, okay, if I can do the machine, I'll do it.
The DigniCap is a scalp cooling system designed to prevent hair loss in patients undergoing chemotherapy.
This is a cap that fits over the scalp. It's connected with tubes that circulate a coolant, cooling the scalp down, and it keeps it at a very controlled temperature.
Cold. Cold, cold, cold.
The temperature is kept between 34 and 37 degrees.
I was very apprehensive, thinking that it was going to hurt, but it didn't, not at all.
Once at the right temperature, the patient can begin chemotherapy as normal, wearing the cap for the duration of their treatment.
We think it works by reducing the circulation to the scalp because it's cool, and it also slows down hair follicle turnover, and in that way reduces hair loss.
According to a recent study by the Journal of the American Medical Association, 2/3 of women lost less than 50% of their hair while wearing the DigniCap, and some lost nothing at all.
When you consider everything else, just, you know, some of the depression and everything that you can get just from not having your hair and going through all this, I would think that the paying for the treatment for people from insurance companies would be well worth it.
But Deborah doesn't have to worry about that either, because in addition to donating the DigniCap, Women Working Wonders is also covering the treatment costs for any Sparrow patient who wants to use it in the next year.
Is it going to save lives? No, but I think it's going to definitely improve the quality of life for people going through treatment for cancer.
And Deborah couldn't agree more.
Oh, this is fabulous, yes.
There's hereditary cancer, there's familial cancer, and then there's just sporadic cancer. So
Meet Corey Bourdon.
Everything I do is foreign to almost everyone.
Sparrow Hospital's cancer genetic counselor.
And my whole job is comprehensive risk assessment. So figuring out cancer risk and talking to patients about this is exactly what you need to do and this is exactly who you need to see.
She starts by taking an in-depth family history spanning 3 generations.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
For patients and families who are at risk.
And your sister's healthy.
Of developing hereditary cancer.
And then, do you have any children? We're all 99.9% the same genetically, but that little bit of a difference makes a big change in disease risk all across the board.
Throughout these hour-long interviews, Bourdon is looking for certain red flags. Among them, early age of cancer diagnosis, 45 or younger, a strong family history with multiple family members in multiple generations, or anyone with a rare form of cancer, like ovarian cancer or male breast cancer.
And then at that point, we decide, well, is genetic testing something appropriate? So if we do genetic testing, there's not a one genetic test option. There's 500 plus genetic tests, so it's really important that we pick the right test.
The testing part is easy, usually a simple blood or saliva test. Those samples get sent to a lab who analyzes the DNA and reports back to Bourdon.
They do the hard work, but then I have to figure out what it means.
The end result? A cancer treatment plan that is completely unique to the patient.
Personalized medicine, in a sense. We know that there are certain drugs that they'll respond better to if their cancer has a certain genetic biology. So that's really important so that doctors don't waste time giving the wrong chemo drug or doing radiation when that wouldn't be recommended. So yeah, it's definitely changing the way we treat cancer.
Genetic counseling has been around since the 1970s, but has really exploded in the past 5 years, specifically for cancer. So much so, she's already booked through November.
Or more after this all airs. Before I got here, people were traveling to Grand Rapids or to Ann Arbor to see their cancer genetic counselor. And there's no one north of us at all until you get to Marquette.
And while she admits there are often more questions than answers in her field,
genetics are new, so there's lots of times we find unknown results that we've never seen before in anyone else.
The work she's doing is saving lives.
These are the newer genes and even newer genes where we don't know risks.
By finding warning signs invisible to the naked eye, stopping cancer at the root before it spreads to the rest of the family tree.
Has anyone else had cancer besides your brother? Giving them the autonomy to make decisions and to take control of the health is great. I love that part of my job.